Welcome to the Playful Domme, the Poly Wife, and the Virgin podcast, where we share our most intimate stories, experiences, and details of our love lives, our intimacy lives, our play lives, and giving you the opportunity to gaze in and get a glimpse of what could be possible in your life as well. As we share our stories, our adventures, we weave in tips, tricks, and techniques to help build your confidence, boost your courage, and give you the opportunity to ask for what you want in your life. Welcome to the podcast. Oh, and just a couple of quick thoughts before we get started. One, we are just everyday people. We are not professionals, licensed therapists, anything like that. This is for edutainment purposes only. This is not medical advice or legal advice, financial advice, nothing like that. Listen at your own discretion. And this is for mature audiences. We're going into deep subjects and sharing deeply about intimacy and all the things about that. So just notice who you're around and let's go.
So welcome all of you who are listening to us. We've decided today to talk about new relationship energy and how we as women, all three of us, kind of navigate what it is to deepen into the relationship and what pieces of us might have been accidentally left behind or let go, and also reclaiming ourselves once again and having that space to kind of look at that. And for myself and for Ella, we're in monogamous relationships, and Lisa, the poly wife, she's in poly. So it's an interesting dynamic to see what new relationship energy is, especially if some of you are getting back in the saddle, or maybe you're experiencing a poly lifestyle like Lisa, and what the new relationship energy can look like and feel like and be like, and how yummy it is, and also how to be aware and navigate through that huge rush of eros and oxytocin and all the yummy things that we desire, and also coming back home to ourselves. So Lisa, why don't you share a little bit? You said you just got back from 3 days with a new lover, and you experienced both the new relationship energy and also a little bit of abandonment of yourself.
Well, part of it was, it was, I've had two experiences this weekend in the last week. I had, my professor and I have been dating and seeing each other for about 6 weeks, talking for probably 2 months. And we finally were able to be together and have some intimacy this past weekend. And what's wonderful about him and new for me is he's the first lover who is 100% compatible with me sexually. It's like he and I have a very similar style sexually. Very slow, very loving, taking our time. And truthfully, okay, so we've discussed this over and over again. I love oral sex. I love performing oral sex. And it's because I enjoy playing with a cock. And it's the first time that I've experienced a lover who was as interested in exploring my pussy versus proving that I didn't need a vibrator. I could have him instead. So his other men's techniques are more simulate a vibrator, play with the clit, really just, and he was just all over my pussy, all over my everything. And I really experienced a sense of wonder and exploration with him. And it was incredible. And at the same time, I was not experiencing new relationship energy. I didn't have romantic feelings towards him. He and I have different outlooks in terms, I'm an incredibly positive person, and what's next? And okay, I failed at that. Let me try something else. And he's a little bit more depressive and a little more cautious in his approach to life. And So while we wouldn't necessarily be compatible partners moving forward in our lives, sexually, it was fireworks the entire time, and not like explosive porn fireworks, just really expressive and loving fireworks. And I had 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 nights and 3.5 days with my boyfriend, Sapio. And I'm all filled with new relationship energy. This was an opportunity for us to experience ourselves sharing a space and having longer period of time together. Because usually when we're together, we block out that time and we don't check our phones, no emails. It's just our time. And I want to spend more time with him, but I can't block out the rest of my world when I'm with him. So this was an opportunity for us to sort of see how it worked with me having to work and him having to work, and to spend our time together. And that new relationship energy is just so present for me when I'm with him. I was happy the entire time he was here. I was like, I just like looking over, and there you are, you're working, you might be on your phone, just lying, resting, drinking, whatever it is you were doing. I was just happy with his presence. But my love language is time. So spending time with somebody is what really sort of makes me happy. He, on the other hand, we had talked about how we were going to work our time and carve out time for each other. And he was feeling frustrated and bored because I kept getting called away for work, and he wanted a little bit more of a blocked time. So this was us being able to, and knowing that he was bored and frustrated made me anxious that, oh, well, if he's not enjoying himself, then he's not going to want to come back and spend more time with me. And, I sort of nipped it in the bud right there. I took him aside and I checked in with him. He said he was bored, and I stopped what I was doing, and he was like, oh, let's go out. And we did something. We got out of this space. But it was really nice to feel comfortable enough. This was somebody that in the beginning of our relationship, I didn't know where we stood, and I didn't feel safe, secure, and loved. But that ended. I did feel safe, secure, and loved. And I was able to talk to him and say, I'm feeling super anxious that you're not busier, and I keep getting pulled away from work. And he was like, I'm okay. I appreciate that. And we went out for a little bit, and I said something to him, and he misunderstood it. And he said, well, that's payback because I told you the truth. And I said, no, it's not payback because I told you the truth. We don't kiss in public on my street because the neighbors are nosy, right? So when I refused his kiss, he thought I was punishing him for being honest. And I was like, no, we're in the driveway. And I was like, you could kiss me in the garage before we go outside. And he's like, oh, okay, never mind. And once he had cleared his frustration, he was able to be like, okay, I'm at 0. I'm totally fine. I've got your attention. And that was good. And we managed to compromise because we're both committed to being in the relationship. And then we went to a class last night. He did really great with tying me with the ropes. And he was really sensuous and touching me in such a loving way. And I immediately was able to just sort of snap back into that new relationship with him. It's been 5 months. It's not new relationship energy. It's just continuing to keep me on that sort of that high and that plateau. But when there was a hiccup, we were able to just sort of address it and then move forward from it. So I was really faced with the difference between the emotional connection that I have for Sapio and the intimacy connection that I have with the professor, and yet I'm detached. And I found that difference really interesting, and one was not less than the other. I had a lot of sex with the professor, and I had a lot of time with Sapio, and I feel fulfilled in both relationships, and both of them showing up differently for me, with the new relationship energy with one and simply the compatibility with the other, sexual compatibility with the other.
Hey, Lisa, you got me. My curiosity is piqued. So tell me about your class real quick to the listeners, the class, because I'm sure.
Okay, so this is a Shibari class. It is the art of Japanese rope tying, which is meant for artistic purposes, can also be used for bedroom intimacy, but I enjoy it for the artistic purposes. So the knots are awfully complicated, and I have not been able to find a rope partner who's interested in learning how to tie ropes and do that. So we went to a class. It ended up being a 3-hour class. We learned some simple knots, a couple of interesting ties, and then we put them all together and were able to do suspensions. So I did not do it because I have some nerve damage in my arm and it was not safe for me to do it. But the other women, or the other rope bunnies, as we're called, were able to be suspended from bamboo bars. They're probably 6 inches in diameter, and they're hung from a couple of straps. And so you're tied in a position, and then you can be suspended on your side and strung from vertical ropes hanging down. And I'm happy to share some pictures with you so you can see what it looks like.
Wow.
But I really enjoy it. And he really had a good time. He did a great job with the knots. He was able to remember them. And just as he was leaving today, I was like, here, just do the knots for me, and let's see if you remember the knots. He just whipped them together really quickly. He's coming back. We're doing solstice dinner with a small part of our tribe on Tuesday night. And he's coming up on Monday for us to practice. So he took home a book of Shibari complicated ties, and he's going to study it over the weekend and find a tie that he wants to try on me, and we're going to start practicing our ties. So
oh gosh, excited. You always are up to something.
There's always something.
Shibari is a really beautiful practice, and it's definitely connected through, there's almost like it can be a bridge between spirituality and BDSM. And there's the dominatrix who trained me initially, she was my first mentor. She's moved much more into the Shibari practices from being a dominatrix into Shibari. And her posts are beautiful about what she shares and expresses, and the surrender piece, and what people are able to let go of because they're in that suspended state where they really can't hold themselves anymore. They have to let go. And so it's a very beautiful transformative experience. So anyone that's interested, definitely search around. But Rena Fialka is the dom who trained me and the one who does Shibari, and she does them all around the United States. It's really, really beautiful, incredible, very cathartic.
There are quite a few Instagram accounts of Shibari examples. So if you
how did you hear about her, Lisa? Do you just follow her or something?
No, that wasn't who I learned it from. I learned it.
Oh, okay.
We just Googled. I think we saw a video like 10 years ago, 15 years ago about rope. Oh, I know what it was. We saw it on HBO's. There's a sex show that they used to have. What do you remember what it's called? Jess?
Is that with Gwyneth Paltrow?
No. It's not the Noom thing. This was years ago. Really a decade ago, where they explore different kinds of sexual games and practices and stuff like that. And we learned about Shibari, we learned about pony play and sex clubs, and I can't remember it's like Sex After Dark, or I can't remember the name of it. But I learned about it on there, and then we Googled it, and there was a like Two Naughty Brothers, or KNOTTY. We watched their YouTube videos, and then we just bought with now that it's a little bit more commonplace in practice. You can just walk into Barnes and Nobles and buy a book on Shibari. The book I gave Sapio was by Midori.
Yeah, Midori is one of my teachers too, and she's the one who really helped bring Shibari into the United States by writing the first English speaking book about Shibari. So it's pretty cool from Japanese. So anyways, those are like juicy things about new relationship energy. For myself, I'm recognizing this pattern that I'm seeing, and sometimes it takes a few times for me to notice the pattern that when there's a man who really lights me up, I will have a tendency to jump all into him and his world, and kind of in a place of abandonment, like loving with abandonment, and in that abandonment is also pieces of myself. And so I've experienced that throughout this year of having really profound connections with men where I'm brought into their inner world quite quickly, and I'm grateful for that. And then but this piece of me doesn't quite fit, or that piece of me gives them reservation, or hesitation, or it makes them uncomfortable. So or that there's judgment. So the thing for me to do is to cut that piece off. So I'll cut that piece off of me, and then it'll be so much better. It's a huge cost. It's a huge sacrifice, and it brings me back to what I've been searching for. And even with my current partner, where I'll say, like, I've said, like, I've been looking my entire life for having this feeling of presence, of a man's like devoted attention and care and all of that. And it's because I've been like, that's what I've been missing from my childhood, from my father. So to like have that, and it's like I haven't had a steady lover for 3 years. I've spent a lot of time alone, and then even I was celibate for a year, and then this year being around 3 significant men, one of whom I didn't have any romantic relationship with at all, just a very deep bond, but 2 others I did have romantic or intimate elements with, and there was just this abandonment piece. So I'm at a place right now where I feel, in my quest and desire of making love be the ultimate thing for me, and that feeling that I've never had and I've been seeking for so long, and how nourishing and beautiful it feels. And I just want to be enveloped and cocooned in that. And like, that's the only thing that matters. And how can I get more of this? And oh my gosh, how can I create a life so that this is it? Can my life be this? Could my life purpose be as simple as just loving this man so fully and completely? Could that be, it, rather than these other inclinations I have, and pursuits and everything? And there's a point where it's saturated and also diminishing returns. And so now I'm also in a space of self-inquiry of, where did Jess go? And each of these men, I will say that they have a tendency to like, there's it's not so overt, it's quite subtle or covert about becoming more isolated with them, and more isolated with their people. And so there's like a pulling away that I have from my girlfriends or my relationships, or the things like that, the connections. And it's very subtle. It's not dramatic. It's not like, oh, you can't talk to any, obviously then that's kind of the tricky thing about, as we deepen into love. And so I'm in this space of, I'm about to move into a house and have my own space for the very first time in 7 years, which I'm so excited about. And that's come from girlfriends all this year telling me, might be time to plant for a little while. It might be good to rest and to integrate. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, and it's taken me several months. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready to have my own space. I'm ready to hold things as I want, and recognizing that like that's my sanctuary, my place to create my world. And And I noticed how I've been away, stepped out of my priestess practices. I've been away from my rituals. I've been away from my magic, you know. So as I want to offer more things for women, there's a part of me that feels a bit both rusty and insecure and doubtful, you know, have some self-doubt when, and thankfully I have girlfriends like you and others who remind me of my power and my mighty light and my greatness. And you know, my partner is like, he's like, you know, I live a small life. Like I must, you know, I'm not, I don't have big aspirations. And I'm like, well, I do, you know, and it's what to do in that. And one of my girlfriends yesterday reminded me, she's like, Jess, you are so fucking powerful. What are you, like, why are you like diminishing or dimming or like, you do not benefit the world by being 10% of your light. Like we need you at 100%. So I'm just kind of in this tender space right now of, you know, when there's such beautiful chemistry, but the compatibility is not there. And that there might be some fundamental value systems that are very in alignment. And then there's a lot of pieces of the things that actually make me feel magical and joyful and alive that aren't in my partner's purview of accepted reality. And so how to be in that, and that even in our sexuality, which for me, I've so much wanted it to be as a way to connect to the divine, my partner doesn't believe in the divine. So, you know, we've like, it's an interesting space and place to be. And I'm looking at my abandonment of how I abandon myself for the thing that I want so much, which is to be so fully loved and seen and cherished and adored. And then if there's pieces of me that aren't suitable in a way, in a certain light, like how quickly I'll cut them off and I'll stop doing whatever it is because I want that so much. And so I'm recognizing that piece of myself right now.
So I'm going to jump on that, Jess. I agree. I'm in, I think about 6 months now, I believe, something like that. And I believe this is what happens. And I think there's a lot of women that can relate to that, where just what you said, you get so excited. And again, you know, people are on their best behavior and you're doing exciting, fun things, both, you know, going out to great dinners and, you know, events and stuff like that. And again, of course, the loving, right, which is really good in trying to build that relationship. And, you know, again, I've had to reflect too in the last week or so, going, wait a second, right? Because I've got a little bit of possessiveness going on. You can do this, you know, should do this, and you can't do that. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I was very clear at the very beginning, you know, this is the way I live my life. Again, I was very similar to you, you know, 2 years, I was single, absolutely single. And I liked that lifestyle. I was okay. And when I say single, I wasn't seeing anybody. It was just me. And I had some really nice girlfriends that I've met. And my daughter and I went to some friends that we had met last night. And oh, it was so delightful, just lighthearted and fun. And when you have a partner, sometimes, depending on how social or non-social they are, it can be a little challenging. And I'm like, I just want, like last night, it was just great. So I'm feeling kind of the same thing. We had a conversation about it. So we'll see. Hopefully everything works out, but I don't want that. I don't want that. So I don't want to give up. I don't want to be put in a box. I personally, me, I don't want to be put in a box.
And it's funny that you say that, because I said the other day to my partner, I'm like, I feel like I'm making myself even smaller to fit into something that is more, what is the word? Safe, you know? And right. I did an exercise last night with one of my girlfriends. She was walking me through kind of an embodiment practice. And I just felt like I was in this really tight sleeve.
Yes.
Like just like super constricted, and it's like trying to start like using like through body movement and like energy, just like start pushing more space around me, and just and like feeling that and also recognizing I've put myself in there. But I'm curious, what are some like tangible examples of the things that have shown up for you?
Yeah. I mean, this is great. So one of the things, again, he's a little bit older, he's about chivalry, which that's fantastic. I think that's a lost art, so to speak, in men. But for me, and Jess, you know me very well, I'm very independent. You know, I've got some acreage, I've got horses. I I mean, we do our stuff. We build, we paint, we do what we need to do to, to continue to stay alive. So opening the door and closing the door, although it's it's like, wait a second, I got my door. And so I feel kind of rude about it, but I'm like, if you're being kind like that, opening and closing my door, this is a silly example, but I'm going to become weak. I'm not going to be able to shut my door. I mean, it sounds funny. You're bringing the groceries and just being kind, right? But it's like, I can help. I've got this, So anyway, so that's it. And the other thing is when we first started the relationship, I have a lot of platonic, not a lot. There's 3 very close platonic friends that I've had, male friends, for years. We're talking 20 years, platonic. Just good morning, good evening, how's your day going? Simple, kind of meaningless, just kind of chit chat throughout the day. And they've helped me just being there through the ups and downs of life, right? And I told them, I said, hey, I just want to let you know this about myself. I've got, 3 platonic friends. They're not going anywhere. And, oh, yeah, no problem. Well, it was the whole thing. And I work constantly. I've got an online business and I'm checking my phone and I'm responding to Facebook and questions people have and my clients and all this. And he's like, you got to put your phone down, you got to quit texting. And I'm like, wait a minute, right? I'm working, I'm building a brand. So it was that, and he's like, well, you're hiding. I'm like, I'm not hiding. So then it's kind of like I was doing this dance, right? I'm like, well, I got to go over here. I mean, it's just in my space, looking over my shoulder, right? And I'm like, I don't like it. And the other thing that I thought that I said, when I join in and have a relationship again, I know it can't all be fun, but I want lighthearted. I need lighthearted. And so when this box, when I felt like he was like controlling, I hate to say that, but it's controlling, right? I need you to do this and do that. And, it's not, no, I'm not interested. I would rather, no, thank you. So anyway, so that's what's come up for me. It's my past. I don't need anybody to be controlling me. I got it. So simple little things, but they're not. I'm not willing to negotiate. And I'm very proud of myself to stand in my voice, especially at 6 months, because potentially he can choose to go. Okay. And he is the one I'm closest to out of all my life, for sure. Right. And then he keeps saying, you need to keep leaning in. You need to keep leaning in. I'm like, whew, I don't know if I can lean in anymore. I'm good. Right.
Yeah. The leaning in piece. Oh man. Show up, lean in, do the work. And I stand in that, there's a piece about, that I learned. It was about relationships, and it was part of an extension from One Taste. And the thought is that don't leave a relationship when things are bad. I mean, I'm not talking about like abusive, like that's a no-go. Like you just get out. But like if you're going through some challenging, tumultuous things, like that's when you stay and do the work. When you get out is when things are good, because it's like in the relationship is where the work is. And so if you're reaching this state of like plateau, easy peasy, it's like that's when you get out. And it was such a mind fuck for me when like I heard that. It's like, oh, when things are rough, that's when you go in. That's where like there's the deep, juicy stuff. And for me, Ella, it's like, well, what is it in you that feels like you have to always be in control? Not making him right. It's not making him right, but it's like, what is the piece that has you feel like you need to be in control? And could you experience, like Lisa shared, about being tied up where you're not in control, in a controlled space, in safety, with someone who knows what they're doing? But could you allow yourself to be in a situation of your own choice and consent, of not being in control, and just being in your body of I'm not in control?
That's actually a great question. And I think that was think about that. I was just going to say, I think those 2 years, but it was just me, but I did different things and I joined in and I was the smallest person in the room. So I was definitely not in control. That's been my adage and my motto for the last year and a half, is to be the smallest person in the room. So I've done things that I was like, ooh, definitely out of my league, so to speak. I actually very much enjoyed it.
Well,
it's a great question.
But there is a I see a different way of looking at it, because the 3 of us are strong, capable, forward-thinking, independent, but business-minded women. All of us either want to own our own business, or endeavor to create the life that we want. We know that we can do that, right? So it could simply be a matter of, because this is it, I'm in a situation right now, I've started this new position. I'm only in it 2.5 weeks. And so my hours aren't quite figured out. When I'm going to get the work done, how I'm going to get the work done isn't quite figured out. So in general, my schedule is I work best first thing in the morning. And then we have a call generally from 11 to noon. And so then after that, the rest of the day is my own. I expect the rest of my day to be my own. He'll send me work to do over the course of the day and overnight. And then when I get up in the morning, I'll just get to it, right? And what happened yesterday was, and in our conversation, he gave me more work to do that he needed by the end of the day. So I lost my day to that. So I don't always have, because you are a business owner, you want to be able to answer your emails and be available to your customers, your clients, your workers. So I can understand where he may feel like, well, I need to be in control, but there's also going to be times when you're not available to your workers and your clients, and you can give your work to somebody else. So there's a way for you to maybe, and that's what he and I had done ahead of time. We had said, well, we're going to have 12 to 4 all to ourselves, because that's our sweet spot when I'm not working and the husband hadn't come home yet. So it turned out that didn't work for us. So maybe, he's jealous of the time that you're spending away from him. And maybe there's a way for you to carve out time when you can just be focused on him. In my case, we did that and it didn't work. But it was because the nature of my business, I didn't feel able to push back and say, you know what, I can't get that done this afternoon. It'll have to wait till tomorrow. I didn't feel comfortable doing that because it's too new for me. But it made me aware of that dynamic. So maybe that's something that could work with you and him.
Yeah, that's great for sure. Great advice. So we'll see.
I think part of it too is the insecurity piece, right? So the insecurity largely of the man, right? Because we are powerful, we are strong, we are beautiful, we have a lot going on. Like I think inherently we carry this I don't need you kind of thing. And I'm
trying to even soften that. In the last few years, I've I've asked for more help, and I've tried to change that, but you're right. Inherently it's there.
And that's that's also probably what attracted them to us to them in the first place, was like, wow, here's this like powerhouse woman, like she's got it going on, she's taking over the world. And so it's learning and navigating. And I've been through some bumpy rides with my partner the last few months. We've been together a few months, feels like 3 years, but apparently it's been a few months. But like the number of that I had male clients, I have so many male friends, and his thing is like, you love a lot of men. I was like, well, I mean, there's different levels of love.
Yeah, so you've had the same thing. Yeah, that's right.
There's different levels of access that they have, and there's also men who stood by and like held the line for me as I've been like going through some major shifts and changes that you weren't there for. No knock on
fault
you,
of your
obviously.
own. Yeah,
but
that's
like
right.
that doesn't mean I cut off or minimize the like those are really important relationships that I've had. And there's like a part of me that like could not handle my partner when we were going through a little bit of a maybe let's be friends with benefits thing, like him being on dates with other women. Like I could not handle it at all. It was making me like mad, like insane. So, and that's like stuff for me to work on. So like I notice when things come up, I'm like, it's stuff for me to work on. Oh, that stuff, this is something for me to look at and have to deal with. But it's like, well, what about the insecurity piece in you? And
Jess, how
why
did you
is
handle
it?
that? Because I think exactly what you just said is what we're all feeling. Because again, I know you've had the situation as well. So how did you help your partner become more I don't know, that they, what am I trying to say? So
Secure?
they feel secure.
So I'm not going to say I took the right path. I think that probably a more empowering place could have been detached compassion, meaning like I empathize with your position and I understand that this is hard for you and I'm showing up fully for you, and can you trust in that, versus me not doing my men's work anymore, versus me like really backing away from a lot of friendships and connections and relationships that I have by me like spending nearly all of my free time with him. That it's like, if I'm not with him, I'm at the house helping my friends, but other than that, like where else am I going, especially this last month? And I look at it that like, this last 5 weeks where I've really invested a lot of my free time and space, and I chose to do that instead of like focusing on other things. I was like, oh, I'm going to really pour myself into this relationship because it's important, and this partnership. And there's like a sense of togetherness, and it's cool, but like I wouldn't say I took the right I'm not going to make myself wrong, but if I were to do it differently, I would say like, I can sense that you're feeling perhaps some insecurity or something, like whatever the word is. If you don't want to say insecure, like, I sense that maybe you're not sure how you stand with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, so trying to maybe take off the wording of insecure and like kind of like the judgmental words, because that can be a very triggering thing for men.
Yeah.
So it's like, like I notice that you don't know how you stand with me, or that that for me it's like I want to get to underneath it. What's causing the thing? What's underneath like this, instead of me just trying to mitigate and hit like, oh, this is your pain, so I'll take away that surface pain, but that's not really the thing.
Yeah,
the thing
right.
Underneath. So I'm like, what's underneath that?
Right. Well, I have to say that from the poly standpoint, this is something we have to address really quite clearly and quite often. It's a boundary that we have, right? So I can't fix my partner's feelings. What I can do is I can say, what is it that is missing from what you're wanting from me? And maybe it's again the sort of the wheel of consent.
Yeah.
Because what are you asking of me, and what am I able to give you? What do you want to receive? What can I give? What do you need to take, and what can I allow? So in Jess's case, what he was taking was a lot of time, and you were allowing him to not dictate, because that's also not entirely true. You wanted to give him as much time as possible and invest as much time in that relationship. But when you realize that you are maybe not violating, but rescinding the commitments you had made in other places with your other friends, both of you, with your platonic friends, that you're not giving them the attention that you want. So I am managing 5 relationships, and all 5 of these relationships require different amounts of attention from me.
Yeah.
One requires a text a month. Another requires a text every quarter. Another requires a text every single day. Another requires my physical presence every single week.
Okay.
Right? So, but we talk about, what are your needs? What do you need from me? And what am I able to provide for you? So if Ella, your partner's needs are, I need to be your sole focus.
Yeah, sure.
Then you can say, you know what? I really want to give you a lot of attention because you give me, you provide so much for me, and I love the way we, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I can't put all of my focus on you, because I do have my work and I have my friends and I want to do that. But what if I always reserved Tuesday nights? That's yours. That's our sacred time. And we're going to always have Tuesday nights. And I'll make sure that nothing else is put in the way of the time that we're going to spend together on that day.
Sure.
Could we try that for a while and see how that kind of a solution? But I'm always negotiating what my needs are and what other people's needs are. Like with my husband, he is spending way too much time out of the house, not having conversations with me. He can have a conversation with me on the drive. We haven't had a one-on-one conversation in a week with my husband.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I'm feeling the need, like we really need to feel connected. And so we've made time for today, this afternoon. It's just us time. Nobody else gets in the way. We're going to have a good time ourselves, and we're not going to put ourselves behind our relationship behind everybody else's things. So it could be that might be helpful in your situation, is to just have a candid conversation. What are your needs? And let's see how I can provide those needs for you. Because otherwise you feel quite compatible, right?
Yeah, sure.
Are you looking to merge your lives? I mean, that's the other thing. Nobody's looking to merge their life with me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not looking for a life partner.
Yeah.
Sex, right? I'm looking for companionship and partnership and social and tying up. Yeah. So just determine make sure that what both of you want out of the relationship is what you agree to, because his expectations may be up here and your expectation, he may be looking for a life partner and you're looking for companionship.
Sure. Yeah, right. For sure.
You don't need to share your life. You don't need to move in and live with somebody necessarily.
And that's a very great point as well, because again, I was going along by myself, right? Again, for years. And literally the week before when we decided to make it a relationship, I was like, God, I really like this. I think I'm good by myself, right? And again, I'm 53. I'm still a young woman, and that was literally my thought process. Then it's like, wow, wait a second, what happened? So
suddenly I'm in a relationship.
Yeah, and I'm like, so I think that there's, I don't know, I think there's some of that. I just want it to be lighthearted.
Okay, so what would please me, right? What would please me is a lighthearted relationship. What does that look like, feel like, sound like, taste like, smell like? Get into the senses, like really, what does lighthearted mean to you? If that means like, we go out twice a week, or we cook at you get to say that this is what makes me happy, this is what pleases me. And then he gets the opportunity, so it's kind of like inverting it. Of course, we all have needs. Like, how can I meet your need? But how can you meet my need? And what am I available for? And what are you available for? And where are the gaps that maybe someone else or something else or another hobby or yourself can fill that gap, rather than us trying to stretch across the abyss to meet the person there. And it's like, shit, I'm like stretched over this fucking abyss. Like, damn, I better hold that real strong. Otherwise I'm going to fall into that abyss that I am trying to create as a bridge. So what would please me now? And it sounds like you've said, I want lighthearted. I know I can do this on my own. Okay. So what is it that, and he gets that opportunity to rise to that. Like, you want a lighthearted relationship, and you can, thanks for the countless hours of going down on me, but you know what, like I want this is what's actually going to light me up even more.
Yeah, sure.
And you get to say that, and then he gets to decide. So like, and this is, of course, medicine for me too, to hear. It's like, what do I really want, and what will really light me up? And then how can they meet us where we are, rather than you hopping off your horse to go hang out and walk alongside him when you are a rider.
I want to go. Yeah, exactly. I want to go.
The other thing to do is to consider, I know that all three of us have given something up to accommodate the relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
What I would like to know is if you are aware, just asking the question, if you are aware of them having given anything up for the relationship, because I think that's another way. And again, you don't want to be in comparison and say, well, I did this. Why haven't you done that? But it's an awareness that you could say, oh, you know what? I have no more conversations with X, Y, and Z because I've let these friendships fall off because I've spent so much time with you. Which friendships have you let fall off?
And he's the first man in ever in all of my history that has actually leaned in and has been very giving. Come this direction, so to speak. Usually, I'll again, in the past, I'll just like, okay, I'll go along and just, I let everything go and I just morph to their life. But that's not the case this time. So it's very different. So, but anyway.
So much to dive into and examine these pieces as we unweave and untether ourselves, right? Like, I think all three of us, and for many of the listeners, are actually quite wild spirits. We're stallions, we're butterflies, we're pure magic. And there's this space of being the light and being the sparkly thing that draws the others into our worlds and our space. And then they want to take us back to where they are, come back to my world with me. And there's something to be said about there's a reason why we are so magical and so powerful and so attractive and so strong, and to be able to stay in that stand and who we are with grace and compassion and also with openness to play and explore. And it's when we get to go into these other worlds and realms of partners or pursuits or potential, relationships that we get to see, like, how do I show up in this, and how do I stand, and does this feel good? And actually, this doesn't. Okay, how do I get back into a stand that feels good, centered in myself, and also in an invitation for them to come in and play with me. Any final thoughts, Lisa or Ella? No. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well,
it was a good talk. It was a good chat.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're all in the same, the same time, same space. And everything.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Well, you know what? And I think we've got Mercury going retrograde in January.
That's it.
A little bit more tumult in terms of relationships. Well, I mention it only because, well, it depends on when the podcast lasts, but in terms of I want to make sure my ducks are in a row before the stars not misalign, but realign, right? I want to make sure that my relationships are in strong,
sure,
and clear. And because that is a time when communication really gets mismatched. And that would be my only thing for me. I have a great respect for Mercury being retrograde and a problem with communication in partnerships. So just that's a public service announcement.
Exactly. Oh, I love it.
Buckle up, hold yourselves, ladies. Hold it and find a way for you to express your emotions and have girlfriends to be able to share that with, just in case, before you unleash on the unsuspecting, untrained, unprepared man.
Exactly.
So, it's all there.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Love you all.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Want more? Head over to theplayfulpodcast.com for all the juicy things we have to offer. From there, you can join our community where you can get access to after hours, attend upcoming workshops and events, and even book a session. Bye for now.